Age of Sigmar Mondays. That's right. We are live in the studio. I'm actually currently in some sort of magical realm. Oh, Nathan has opened a can of beer into his microphone. God damn it. Anyway, I'm joined by Mr. Nathan Prescott. Nathan.
Hello. I was testing the mic. Did it work?
I hate you so much. And then also by Mr. James Powell. Hello, sir.
How's it going?
Yeah, great. Nath, James, great for you to be here. I think we're live. Thanks, everyone, for joining us live. Nathan, how are you? Talk to me. Tell me what's going on.
I'm jolly good, sir. What can I tell you? I am still painting Rockgat Trogoths, as of the same ones that I was painting last week.
Mm-hmm.
I've got quite a lot of bits on them. And also I haven't managed to get much painting done.
What have you been doing? Oh, no.
And other stuff.
No, I broke the internet, lads. Lads, I've already broke the internet. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah.
No, it didn't. What did you say you were doing?
Oh, I was just saying I was doing, I don't know. I was
doing work things?
Yeah. I was painting Rockgat Trogoths. That was about the only Warhammer stuff I've been doing. And then the other stuff is just life stuff, really.
Oh, nice.
I drove to Manchester.
Oh, see Danny? How is she?
Yeah. She's grand, yeah. Yeah. And that was about it.
Oh, okay, nice.
That's the most exciting thing I've probably done. Yeah.
All right, lovely. James, what about you? What have you been up to?
What have I been up to? I had a social distance game of Warhammer. That was nice for the first time in forever. So I didn't play Sigmar. I played some 40k, which is dumb because it was to try and learn the rules, but now they're all going to change.
That is a bad decision.
Yeah, it was a bad decision, but that's fine. I used my painted models. I brought an airbrush this week. So I owned all the compressor and stuff because I had one before and fell out with it, and I think probably just booted up a wall. But no, I brought a new one. Brought a new airbrush gun bit. That's the technical term. So I did some airbrushing this week, and if anyone saw my Twitter earlier, which was about the show, that was my airbrushing. So I airbrushed my offensive glitter paint onto some models. I think that's it.
Right, nice. It's
very
very glittery. Yeah, last week we got to find out about your paint brand, which you are, I think, obviously not the show because we take no sponsorship, but you specifically and personally are sponsored by now. I've heard you have a tattoo of them on your butt.
Oh, can you imagine? I'd have spicy meatball tattooed on my butt.
That's weird.
That's what I'd have.
I reckon Nathan's had some spicy meatballs near his butt this week.
I imagine so.
It's true, actually. Yeah.
Good, that's what we wanted to hear.
Well, we're going to talk today. We're going to talk about the news. We're going to see how everyone else follow list seems broken. What's happening, Rograx? I don't know what that means. Maybe one of our streams is broke. Is it working? As in,
maybe he thinks it's really good in the game.
I can't see my follows. Huh?
Oh, okay. All right, it's nothing to do with us. Okay, good. All right.
The recommended channels. Yeah. Mine doesn't work either today.
Oh, okay. So Twitch is just a bit broke today. Okay. All right. Well, thank you everyone for joining us live, wherever you might be joining us. I see Facebook, Twitch. I see Twitter also, and YouTube. So thanks for doing that. Also, if you listen to the podcast, please stay hydrated and stay well.
I see so many websites. It's crazy.
So many. I'm actually thinking of consolidating them down just the one in the future, but we'll talk about that another time. And then, thank you to everyone that's watching on Patreon. Couldn't do it without you. You guys are the best. Today, subject for everyone, big shout out to War Machine, Crazy Horse, Rograx, and everyone has joined us live, and Wolf Priest Kajal, who's very excited about being able to use that meme of you and me, Nathan, as Techless and Techless's mount, which he's been using on Twitter. So he's up for that. Today's show is we're going to be talking about the news. what we've been up to, and then we're going to be answering a question that the author of some of the best books that we've seen come out of Black Library in a while, Mr. Aram Dembski-Bowden, has asked on Twitter, and he included us in the question. I see Mick Wendell, big love to you, Mick, as well. I hope you're well. Once tried to answer it a little bit on Twitter as well. So it's a big question, and it was like it's quite intense. So you and me, us three, are going to try and tackle that. Unpeel that onion. Yeah, we're going to tackle that hurdle. We're going to jump that fence.
Well, right, Rob?
Pardon me?
Who's going to go and tell him?
Well, we're just going to send him a link to the video. Seems like the easiest plan.
But wasn't there? I've got a question for you, Rob, that I think is hot in the community.
Yeah. What is it?
Well, I heard or saw that you released a poetry album.
No, I did not.
Did you tell people where they could get it?
No, I did. I put up a picture thinking this is a funny picture because some of the city centre has been particularly quiet during lockdown, although that is over today. Has anyone been through the city centre today? Heaving. No. Here in the UK, it's been quite quiet, but I would describe it today as heaving. There was a queue outside Sports Direct, longer than you could possibly believe. Huge. Don't know what everyone were after. Cycling shorts.
God knows.
God knows. But it was busy. It was busy. Yeah, I'm not doing. No, my poetry slam album isn't for today's show. We'll talk about that another time.
It's for a separate show.
We have had some questions, though. Question, have all the objective markers been dispatched now? I've only got one set of 2 I ordered, says Chris.
Yes. If you ordered them completely separately, Chris, they went in waves. And I don't know where you are in the world. So if they were ordered separately, I'd have posted one set, then another set. But everything's gone. So if you haven't had them, and you had the email ages ago,
get in touch.
Drop me a message.
Yeah. Okay. Well. Good. Anyway, I asked you both how you were. Have you guys seen any news or hot goss, or have you been involved in anything this week, wargaming wise, that has tickled your pickle, Nathan?
I can't think of any Warhammer news or anything. I've not heard of anything. Is there anything happening?
Like, they literally announced an entire new box set for 40k. Like, if you were remotely interested at all, the 40k guys are like nipples erect. And Nathan's like, I wonder if anything has happened at all. Have you not even seen the memes for the Space Marine buggy that looks like Mario Kart?
No. What's that? Oh, is 40k getting a new box set or something?
Yeah, a new box full of Necrons and Marines.
Nice.
Yeah. Bobby Halls, by the way, Nathan, who is the first member of your cult, is over on YouTube, and he's
G'day, sir.
So nothing for you, James. Anything from you?
Yeah. Big news.
Go on.
Big
What's
news
happened?
Today. Get to buy some elves.
Oh, you can talk about that, elves. Okay, well we could talk about that. Yeah. So Games Workshop have announced. This weekend will be the pre-order for the Lumineth Realm Lords, but only the box set. Doesn't say it's the pre-order for the battle tome. So we might have that sticky situation where only
isn't the battle tome in the box set?
It is, but there's only a limited amount of box sets, Nath. So if we wanted to buy a digital version of the rule book, we might not be allowed to. For instance,
well,
so maybe there might be a situation where only people who own the box own the book.
I read because I actually reached that point this afternoon. I read the Games Workshop email, which I never do. I just look at the pictures like a destruction player, and it does actually clearly state in there that basically there's going to be some Warcry rules for the old pointy elves, and that box, and you can wait a while to buy the rest, is basically what it says. So I think it's a little while off yet for anything else, but that's cool. I'm excited. Going to read the book.
Well, yes. So yeah, they can potentially only get in the book. Only people who buy the box are going to get the book, and then and therefore, if you don't own the book, there'll be no way for you to know what's in the book, unless, of course, one of your friends has a photographic memory and then somehow can translate that photographic imagery of their mind via mind thoughts to your mind, yeah, would be one of those ways, but I wouldn't know how to do that. Nathan, you're quite into crystals at one point. You got any thoughts how to translate mind images to each other?
Not of luminous elves, no. Other things maybe, but not them.
That's a good point.
Well, so that
Have
actually
you seen their hats?
Huh?
They wouldn't go. Have you seen their hats? Wouldn't go in a
Useless.
crystal. Yeah, crystal would break.
It would break. So there's apparently some really nice artwork, which is cool. But there is a really interesting bit of crunch, or as we like to call it, or rules. They've showed pictures of the sprues again. That always weirds me out. I'm just like, I don't care. Like, if anything's going to put me off, it's the pictures of the sprues, because I'm like, oh, that looks complicated to put together.
Well, do you not think it's weird as well? Like, does anyone look at those and be like, "Ooh, sprues"? Like,
some people do that, but I don't know who it. Nathan, is that you?
No, but it's a specific genre that you can find, I'm sure, on Pornhub and various other sites. Sprue porn.
Sprue
maybe,
porn.
like you get those kids that like open up Kinder eggs live on YouTube. Maybe we should do that with sprues. Maybe that should be our thing.
A sprue fetish. I want that now, but I want us to have a Pornhub channel where we just open, just. This is the Ogre Kingdom sprue. Ooh.
Let's do it.
Have you got a particularly? I look at the sprue. It says Tristan. I'm not joking. I might buy it now. Question: what's your favourite looking sprue? Twitch chat, Nathan and James.
Huh?
Ooh.
Your favourite looking sprue. If sprues be the thing of life, what is your favourite looking sprue?
The Yeti sprue.
Why?
Because around the edge, it hasn't got, the edge stuff is round. It's not more regular in shape, which I think is interesting. So there you go.
James, what would be your...
Oh, now I'm just baffled. I don't even understand what Nathan means.
Nathan,
could you give some more detail, for some context for what you're trying to say?
The support piece of well, in a Yeti it's resin. The support resin piece that goes around the outside is circular. The cross section is circular as opposed to a more regular shape.
That's kind of cool.
Yeah.
I think Nathan wins. I'm gonna go for.
You're not trying.
I want a Skaven clam rats, but the 90s edition where they're all you just clip their head and clip their feet.
That's it. But bam, bam, bam.
I'm like, is that hard to build? No.
Clip, and glue it to a base.
Clip,
Job done.
stick in a slaughter. Don't bother with glue. Done.
Yeah, I can tell you my least favourite sprue is the Necromunda gang sprues that you got in the starter box, where the faces are separate.
Yep, I remember those.
And I was like, no, nuh-uh, not into this at all. I cut half the faces in half. I was like, you're an ugly sprue. That's what I thought.
Are you doing it with a spanner? Is that why you cut half them in half?
Yeah, as you know, I actually just normally use a pen and poke it. That's what I do. Try and poke them out. Just jab at them.
I bet you would have got lots of views doing that on Pornhub.
Well, what with the? This is a whole new. I don't know if this is a whole new revenue stream.
An ugly sprue.
I would like to officially announce the launch of the Honest Wargamer OnlyFans, which I will include in the show notes later, where it's just Nathan with his top off for. That's the content you'll get, plus pictures of sprues done by James, where he just does a finger next to it. He's like, "There's a sprue."
Yep.
So if anyone's interested, let us know. So many options on the Necromunda sprue there is. Ogre Bull sprues are the best sprues because they're the biggest. Also, they're two sprues repeated over and over and over forever. All right, I'm in. Watched a video of a guy popping bits of Gundam out of a sprue, then building it today. Happy to say it was mildly erotic. Says Scotty.
I think we're missing a trick. That's what we should do.
I don't really get unboxing videos either. Can I just say that while we're on the subject? This is completely not what I meant to talk about, but like, what can when someone's like opens a box and goes, "This is in a box," and I'm like, "All right, sweet. I've seen the picture of what's in the box. I don't need an explainer." Like, does that make sense?
Yeah, I think it's even weirder. So, like, especially with workshop stuff. But then maybe the unboxing videos are for people that are into the sprue porn, because it's kind of like, what's in the box? Oh, this grey plastic that'll sit on your shelf for 9 months to 10 years.
Do any people like react in that way people weren't expecting? Like, they open the box and they're like, and inside is some sprue. And someone's like, holy shit, sprues! Are you real?
Shut up!
Probably the little kids that think they get built models, and their poor parents who realise after they've brought it that they thought they were getting built models. They've got to sit with their child and build it.
Okay, well, if you guys are watching and you are sprue fetishists, I know like you're not meant to kink shame, but I think you're weirdos. I'm just going to say it right now. Okay, well, so some interesting crunch that we found about the elves. Can I just say that I think that box set is phenomenal. I'm just going to say it now, ignoring the dice that genuinely look like frozen urine, because they do.
The dice are terrible.
The piss dice. I mean, we did some dice that said "piss off" on, but the Games Workshop are like, hold our tinkles. Yeah, we're about to make some gross. Anyway, they look horrible. But we found out that the spearmen in this box set, who are on 32mm bases, you can see there, have got a 3-inch reach on their spears. Nathan, how does that make you feel with your grots with a 1-inch? Oh, they got 2-inch reach on their spears, the grots.
Yes, they do. The spears got 2-inch reach, and they don't have to overcompensate for anything like a shiny elf.
No, they do not. They are.
Yeah.
3-inch range on those spears. What do you think, James? Nathan, you got any thoughts on the tactics of that?
So disappointingly short.
Well, 6-inch spears. The obviously that's super great for the shiny elves, but obviously they're making up for some other shortfalls that they must have. Nice way of having a little jab at the elf players there, Nath. Congratulations. I wonder if we're also going to see 3-inch range go onto the lances that we see on the horse dudes as well. I think that would be interesting. Imagine how gutted they'd be if their mates have got 3-inch one sticks and they haven't.
They've got 2-inch sticks.
Yeah, but I bet the guys with the hats have got probably a 5-inch attack with their hats.
I would love if they have a hat attack in addition to it, like, Seraphon with the jaw attack. They've just got they hit a couple of hammer attacks and one hat attack. I'm really into that.
12-inch range,
and
you're like,
hat attack, someone's been listening to the show.
Yeah, it's probably a shooting attack as opposed to a melee attack.
Well, because of the range with the hat.
Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah. Honestly, I think that box set, I'm just going to say it now, or the models. So I like the big goat man. I think Teclis is ridiculous, and the guy on the stone floating is ridiculous. But for elves, I'm just going to say it now, those infantry and horsey men are pretty radical. I'm just going to call it. Yeah. So,
also, I have to say, like, I expected that box to cost me a lot more money.
Oh, how much is it?
So it's £110 RRP, but so if you get it from a third-party retailer, it'll be like 88 quid.
Yeah,
and it's the book and a load of dudes.
So it's 5 horses, is it? 5 horses, the armor, and 10 spearmen.
And
but
a
then
character.
You get the fancy guy, and you get the fancy book, don't you? Some dice that no one's ever going to want. The magic cards and something else.
You get the dice.
It shows how much attention, like, I'm buying the thing.
You got a combat guide, some dice, and some other things.
Combat gauge. No one wants.
Combat gauge.
Yeah, and some dice. So, it's a good box set price-wise, but also the models look great. But I think it's interesting, 3-inch range on the spears. I think there's not really much else to say. Apart from, looks like we're back in business, boys. It's been a quiet time on the releases for Age of Sigmar recently. Obviously, we've got GHB coming up soon as well. So I'd be interested to see also if Nathan, just to keep you abreast, they're re-releasing the edition of 40k. They're doing a new edition. So everyone in the 40k community is quite up in arms. They're going to be sharpening their bullets like you wouldn't believe, all over the shop.
Why?
Because the new edition surely means sharper bullets. Is my thoughts.
It depends if you want like a slug that will really stop people, or if you want an armor-piercing thing that will just go straight through them.
Which would be your preference?
Depends who you're shooting. If you if you're shooting somebody behind a tree, then I guess the sharp bullet's nice. But if you're just shooting somebody and you want them to stay down, then I guess a big fat one.
Life with Nathan.
Yeah. Okay. I'll go with that. Well, anyway, the point is that we might only see this one release of this box, and then we might not actually see most of the other Lumineth stuff come out for a while, because we might say, "Hey, Mr. Teej, by the way." Anyway, so exciting! We've got some new stuff coming out. That's cool. We might actually get to find out what those Lumineth are about. I think
it's really exciting too, because we also have some more content for our OnlyFans, where it's just me sat reading the Golden Book when it comes.
Also,
page 1.
Also clipping out the sound of the ASMR, like.
Maybe I should do that. I might just sit on the stream one afternoon, build models, and see if people watch. Not going to talk. Just going to build.
Yeah. Oh, okay. All right. Well, that's cool. That's come out for the elf players, and I'm glad that you elven guys is finally getting your just desserts, and you're super happy. The Lumineth Hat Lords are on the way. All right. Other news. There isn't really any, apart from there was a TTS tournament run this weekend by our man, Mr. Adam Mumford from the Plymouth Troll Slayers. So it was again won by Seraphon, which is definitely a thing. And that's really still all the news that there is. Obviously, with tournaments kind of taking a general backseat, but I know that some tournaments are kicking off. In fact, actually, our good friends at the Failed Charge may well be doing some tournament coverage of an Australian event on the 27th of June or July. I can't remember, but if I do remember which one, I'll post it out onto our Facebook and Twitter, probably not to our OnlyFans. And we just haven't really got a following on there yet. When we get the following, we'll put it out.
It'll all be on there.
Yeah, but that's cool that there might be a tournament that actually has some coverage with human beings in, so that's fun. What do you guys think of that?
Yeah, that'd be cool. Good to see some dice and some models rolling around together on the table.
Well, so would you guys like to get to the main topic of the day, or James, do you want to let everyone know about how they can save themselves some money?
Oh yeah, let's do that. Let me do that quick. So hang on, let's get this out of the way. So last week I did some talking, which was weird for people, about paint, which I never talk about, but still not the best painter, but really enjoy it. So I did say I would have a mess about with some stuff because loads of people asked questions, and I got some information, so I'm just going to find that email. So if I also get the links. So I used some Instar paint, which I think some people have brought. So I think like some people I know from the community had already kind of shared some stuff. But so yeah, so I brought some Instar paint, so I'll link that. The two biggest things I'd say that were on there that were like my two big orders, where they do a paint called Water Plus.
Oh yes. Oh yeah, you were going to tell us what Water Plus was like.
Yeah.
What is it like?
It's great. Do you know what? Like, really good. I would say it's the best medium I've ever used.
Is it? So, what does it taste like?
Like water, but better. I got them to do me a description. So, I asked them for the dumbest explanation they could give me, so I could basically pass this on. So they said, in a nutshell, it creates a much finer dispersion of paint compared to water. Instead of creating large clumps as normal water does, it creates a more uniform dispersion, which helps with coverage, and opacity. If
Wait,
you use it to help,
does it also help with courage?
yeah. If using it to help the paint flow better, adding more will obviously dilute the paint, but it will always be in a more uniform matter. Blah 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 blah. So it doesn't contain any acrylic, which in theory makes it not a medium, and it doesn't add any extra like paint particles to it. I can't really explain it, but you know, like there's the whole two thin coats thing. That's basically what it does.
Or
Like,
can
so
we
much.
steal this? Big shout out to Nubgun in the chat. Are you telling us that not only should we hydrate ourselves, but we should hydrate our paint?
Yeah, hydrate the paint. Honestly, it was great. Love it. So I've used some of that, and I have used some of their paint, which is also very nice. And then they do a metal plus, which I also brought, which I've tied a little bit, but probably not enough to give you a huge thing. But this is super cool. So the description's my favorite bit. So metal plus is basically suspended metal particles. The idea is you add another paint. The more transparent, the better. And it turns it into a metallic paint. That's how easy it is. It's super cool. Like, even in the bottle, it looks like liquid magnesium. Super cool. Big fan.
Okay, well, exciting. I'm glad that Water Plus was plus.
Yeah. So honestly, I would say like I'm not a great painter, but it made it super easy. So like all I was doing was putting a blob of paint on a palette, a tiny spot of that in because it's in a little dropper bottle, and then painting, and it was just so much easier. Like the paint didn't dry out as fast. It went on better. Big fan. It's a big fan of that. And then my other one, which is my more exciting news, and if anyone follows me on Twitter, so I think it's on here somewhere, so it's Power106, I put a picture up earlier of a kind of horrifically golden, glittery metallic tank. So I also painted that this week, and I did that with an airbrush, but I have also hand painted with that paint. That paint's from a company called Turbo Dork, which are a bit of an indie paint range, I guess. So I haven't been to their website in a long time, but let me just grab it. So if you're in America, I believe it is, or Australia, I think it's America. Their website's there. You can have a little nose. So they do like metallic color change paints. That's basically their thing, but they all have great names. I've been using that and like this kind of absolutely just kind of crazy, insane glitter paint. So if you look at my Twitter, there's one on there, but they do a whole host of colours. And anyway, so there's a guy in the UK who sells it, and his shop's called Exit 23 Games. Again, we're not sponsored by any of these people. This is just me being a bit of a nerd. But so this guy I brought some stuff from in the past, and he is absolutely ace. Sorry, Gabe. You can use a brush with all the paints for Turbo Dork. I brushed them all for absolutely ages. I only picked up an airbrush this week, and I think I've been painting with them for about 2 months. They're absolutely wicked paints. The colours are really cool. I think maybe what I would say is you'd kind of do in a load of thin coats if you want them super even. With an airbrush, obviously, that's just a bit easier. But I just think they're ace. And anyway, so there's a chap called Chris who I've brought some off a couple of times. If you're in the UK or Europe, he's their distribution person. And he's ace. Like, he puts a little note in your parcel that's like, hope this was ace. Any issues, you can just drop me an email. Here's my email. After you've had your order, he'll drop you a little email to say thanks for ordering. Really appreciate it. It's just him, his little shop. I just think it's wicked. And I had a little chat to him after last week and talking on the show because I just wanted a bit of information to give to everyone because I really like the site and I really like the paints, but I didn't have anything. So I thought this was quite interesting, especially as I know me and Rob have talked about various kind of things and obviously with some stuff going on in the world. So Exit 23 Games, if you go there, sell Turbo Dork, but they also sell loads of Blood Bowl teams or several Blood Bowl teams, which I don't play. But Chris set up the website because he couldn't find any female Blood Bowl miniatures that he thought represented the game well, I guess. or that he liked. So he's set up a site that sells basically like hand sculpted Blood Bowl teams, which I think is super cool. And then Turbo Dork started around the same sort of time he started the website. So he became their distribution center. And that's kind of that. And then because I've been chatting to him, he very kindly sent a discount code for any of our watchers, which is literally just THW 2020.
THW 2020. There you go. But we're not sponsored by them.
There's no sponsorship. We get nothing for it. I get nothing for it. But like in my head, he's a really cool part of the community, bringing us some paints that were going to cost me like 80 quid to ship to the UK because of the laws on transporting paint. So yeah, I just was giving shout out to various things I'd used during isolation that were cool, I think.
Well, you should do what me and Nathan did when we travelled through China. Number one, the first thing Nathan did was start talking about Winnie the Pooh, which made me very nervous. And then the second thing he did was transported we got to Australia, and it turns out he brought all the paints with him in his pants. Yeah, I was
There and back again with Winnie the Pooh.
Dear God. Oh, Fellatron, thanks for subscribing. Nice to see you. Well, that sounds fun. I'm going to look at that because I have a quick bit of hobby news. Because of the conversation I had with the wonderful Henry Steele from the Cult of Paint the other day and Adam Chucklebutty on his birthday, I bought one paintbrush, one Winsor & Newton Series 7 size 3, which is what he suggested as the paintbrush to buy. However, I've been too scared to actually use it to paint with anything, so I've not used it yet, but one day.
Have you looked at it?
I've looked at it. So
have you stroked it?
It seems very sable, but it's made of sable, I think. But yeah, I haven't used it yet.
Have you licked it?
I have now. There we go. But I've been painting my Lord of Change. That's what I've been doing, and it's
have
nearly
you licked
finished.
Your Lord of Change?
Well, you can't see it. I have now. But you can't you can't see it because it's made of see-through paint. Fellatron says, "Who's ADB?" Great question. Let's get on to the main topic. Hey, I've got a couple of Winsor Newtons I'm almost scared of using. Yeah, see? Same thing. But I do have this one stubby brush that I've got from Element Games, which, by the way, a stubby brush is just like a smaller, like literally stubby brush. And it's really nice for doing detail, but I use it for everything because I've got terrible brush control. So, right, let's move on.
It's not very nice to call a brush
shorter?
stubby.
Yeah, it's shorter.
Shorter?
Yeah, significantly shorter. Like, I'll show you guys. I'll see if you guys can see this. So there's the.
So are you used to dealing with that thing just because the length is less?
You set yourself up for that.
I don't mind. Yeah, it's also thinner. Not only is it smaller, it's also thinner. It doesn't carry enough weight behind it. But anyway, right. So the main topic of today's show is a very difficult subject, I guess, to unpack. But I think specifically because Mr. Aaron Dembski-Bowden of writing stories about Space Marines and also Age of Sigmar stuff fame, put up a Twitter post, and he included us in it because he said we already do this quite well, which is nice. So I thought I'd go through it and then we could unpack it as a story if you guys are interested. Okay?
Yep.
So, so he said, "Dear Warhammer Tactics people, my name is Aaron, and I am well. I hope you are also well. I have a request and an explanation, and obviously playing the game answers a lot of what's in this thread. That goes without saying. We already do that. You, me, and everyone else. Okay." So it's quite a bit. He is a writer, so I'm more curious about countering. I'm more curious about countering a trend in some video guides, as well as the repetitive answers on social media to those "What unit should I take?" questions from newbies. I think we're letting people down a lot here. So he thinks that either us as content creators or us as a community are letting new people down, especially. What my friends do. They use units that look cool, matching our army themes and preferred tactics, tied into the lore that we love. What we don't do is copy cookie cutter lists off the internet and lovingly / sadistically hone them to tournament right perfection. How we play isn't unique. So apparently, well, not apparently. I'm not meant to. There's no underlying text of me saying apparently there. But his point, I think he's getting at, is that there are lots and lots and lots of people who don't ever try to hone their list. They just take the stuff that they like, they play it the way that they want to, and they have a nice time. Yeah?
Yep.
And he thinks there's a lot of people like that, which is, I'm sure, true. Plenty of tactics videos and online discussion of army lists immediately dives into what's best in exclamation marks. The strongest unit, the special character you take instead of the weaker generic character, the auto-take artifact. I'd argue this is of limited use in, like, reality. Relaying that stuff proves you can read tournament tables, which is great, or anticipate them, which is nothing to be sneezed at. That's a damn craft in itself, no argument. But it's useless for actual tactics and deeper discussion, and it swallows pretty much all other debate. Tell me why I should take unit A, B, and C, not just X. What are they good at? Oh, they're not optimal, cool, great, but what are they good at? What are they bad at? In what kind of army would you take that unit? What special rule is it that unit is strong against and weak against? Don't tell me to take one best sub-faction and ignore the others. Plenty of normal, actual people do fine with those sub-factions. Tell me what they're good at and how they play them better than I currently do. You know, tactics. So instead of just talking about what's optimal, talk about the tactics of all of the things that you see. Don't tell me what artifact is auto-include and then move on. Tell me what are the other 30 in the battle tome are good. That's very unlikely there'll be 30, but we'll talk about that later. Tell me which cool realm artifacts would go with different enclaves, lodges, legions, tribes. Tell me what your law-appropriate armies might look like. Answering those questions proves insight, understanding, and depth of tactical knowledge. Copy and paste in 30 eels led by the king, an entire species, and don't forget Cloud of Midlight on the Soul Scryer again. Does not. I know we've all seen it.
That's the one he picked out.
Yeah. And then he said, shout out to Small Gamer, stay hydrated, and some other great content creators who consistently do awesome work on this. So, what do you... I can run through some elements of this again. It looks like you should bring back the unit rundown, and that is probably where I'm going to go with this at the end. But right now, I just wondered what you guys wanted to... What are your initial reactions to that and your thoughts? Just getting into it.
I mean, there's a lot of questions in there, isn't there?
There is. Is there anything you'd like to pick out and start off from? I don't mind doing it if you'd like.
I think one of the big noticeable things to me is like, and this might upset some people, so I apologize in advance. But I almost feel like there are like most of the areas that discuss armies in the community. That's how they work, right? Like, I don't think I've ever been in a WhatsApp group for an army for more than about 5 minutes without like just getting triggered and leaving. And that's like not offense, because some of the time I'll be in a chat and I'll be like, oh, I know some of these people, like, oh, it's whoever I've played or know or have a beer with, and then but like the chats just go crazy and I don't care. And I think maybe it's how you play, but it's not. Yeah, it's not like, I don't know. I think like there's a lot of negative talk around things where it's just like, this is what you take, this is why you take it, have a nice day. That's okay. The internet build of the minute, and I guess that's what he's getting at, isn't it?
Well, and what he's frustrated by. Nathan, yeah. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, he is right. There is a lot of net listing behavior out there, but I do think, like he says as well, in a lot of groups, people will just take the models that they think are cool, and that they sort of look at the table and think these models belong together. Like in my city's army, I've just taken all the dispossessed and some carriage on, just because I think it's a theme. Or the army that I used to play quite a bit was the Wolf Rider army. So I just had what would they call, packs of Wolf Riders riding around, and then just backed up by models that I thought would be themed along with them. Chariots and the Git Mob guys. So you do get players like that, but then you get other players that, for some reason, whatever reason that may be, it's not a bad thing. You don't have to point a finger at anybody about it, but they might just not be interested in making a themed army, and they're not really interested in how the army list is constructed. They just want somebody to say, this is a good army, and then they just want to take that and play it. So, I mean, you've got a wide, and then you've got everything in between. You've got those people that actually like the theme, those people that aren't bothered about anything, they just want a list. And then you've got other people that really enjoy making the list and trying to squeeze everything they can out of a list, or making a list that's different and unique. There's different types of list writers, I guess. I think, like you say, in the WhatsApp groups, I mean, I'm not in many of them, but they do, whenever anybody asks about lists, it is quite often that they'll point out the obvious strength that the book has got, but then sometimes you'll get a side discussion about a certain sub-faction or something that's maybe not the obvious strength, but it still has got some little tricks or some little combination that makes it interesting. And that's probably what he wants discussed more often, or he wants people to go out and try and find those on their own. But okay.
Okay.
Yeah,
all right.
That's what I think.
Yeah. Well, I think there's a lot to unpack here. And it is a difficult topic because it goes to the nuance, right? And actually, quite uniquely, I've actually been involved in this conversation twice in the past week. So when it came up, I was like, "Oh, this is brilliant! I'm in the middle of this conversation in my head."
That's unique.
What
unique because you don't normally have a conversation about the same thing in the same week.
Normally, eight or nine things in the same day. No, the same thing 8 or 9 times in a day. You know me. If ever there's anyone to labour a point, it would be me. In the WhatsApp group, says Nadishi, there are sometimes very vocal people who think they are the only ones who know everything. I feel like that's true. There's also a lot of people expressing their opinion like facts. To be honest, I bang on about how poor my Nighthawk are, but like you have said before, guys, a lot comes down to just knowing things more reliably and well, unless you're at tournaments. But Nadishi, I agree, and and we are in. I'm a talking head, right? I'll say this unit is rubbish or this thing is not good, and I'll talk about why I do that in a moment. But I'd like to touch on a couple of things that you said there, and James, you also said as well. First thing, let's talk about the narrative, and the theme. This is something. So I was on Mini Wargaming last week with Dave, and Dave asked me a question which took me a while to unpack, and I've had this conversation again already on Saturday, but talking about 40k. Dave asked me, did I ever play a unit in the game that I did something narrative that wasn't the correct tactical choice? And Nathan did mention, obviously, Gargan's putting stuff down his pants, but that's actually an astute tactical choice almost all the time, right?
Yeah.
Right?
It's never a bad tactical decision to put something in your pants.
Unless it's hot.
No, that's great. Great tactics. All the sensations in your pants.
Okay, cool. Sorry. That's why I don't play Gargan.
And the question seemed odd to me because I didn't really know how to answer it. And it's taken me a while to unpack that. And it's because for Dave, and I don't want to speak for him, and I'd love to have him on the show to have this conversation. But for Dave, this concept that narrative was somehow separate from tactical and competitive, they were divorced from each other. He was like 100% only story. And I would argue, personally, that you could be 100% story and still 100% tactical. almost all of the time. Like, you know, it's and I said the same thing on Saturday, but I'm going to repeat myself again. The game is set up to be narrative. Like when you take a bunch of eels, yeah, in Domhain, yeah, you're playing a theme. You're like Nath, your example of Wolf Riders was a theme, but your example of your Cities of Sigmar was a theme. Like 3 Keepers of Secrets is a theme. A ton of Salamanders is a theme. Like it's also narrative because it's inside its own book. We have this weird mental blockage as a group that somehow competitive isn't narrative, but the game designers, and this is where I'll shout about how much I'm impressed by Games Workshop all day, have created a game for us that is both thematic and competitive. They've gone, do you want more special abilities? I'm like, yes, I'd like more special abilities. They're like, well, you must be only Seraphon, and then you must only be this star host, and then you get these special abilities, but you don't get these special abilities. And I'm like, and they're written narratively. You know, some of the themes I don't get. Like, you know, I would push back on the fact that Nurgle should not be fast as fuck. Like, I don't think Nurgle should be +5 to move, running and charge. That confuses the fuck out of me still to this day. Nor do I think witch elves who are naked should be indestructible, or dwarves who are naked should be indestructible. But regardless of that, the narrative, they're playing the narrative, right?
Do you think, so here's just a random question, and probably to both of you two and the chat, like, do we think that maybe one of the issues with that is actually that the staff that write those books, so, you know, like when you read a rule or a unit, you get like a description, don't you? So, you know, like when you go to cast a spell and it will say, oh, they call forth the power of the lightning god Sigmar, they pray to him, blah 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 blah, and then underneath in a slightly different font it says roll 3 dice, this is what happens. Do you think maybe one of the issues we have is that actually lots of people that maybe take a really competitive net list because they didn't want to write a listy as well, maybe also kind of just to the rules part of the book and don't learn their narrative, so we feel like it's a narrative list because there's more people playing it that don't understand why their mounts re-roll all their attacks or whatever.
Yes. Now I can understand what you mean. Like they don't have knowledge, like lore mastery, so they don't understand that what they that, you know, they're playing this particular enclave or host, and the reason that their flamers are battle line is because they're playing a particular one of these Tzeentchian hosts. Fair enough. But then if we wanted to be that serious about it, you'd be like, well, they're not painting the right color either. You know, like stifling that level of creativity is very odd. The only group of people that are ever tarred with the brush are the competitive community. Yeah. If you want, if I was to say to you, hey man, I'm proper crap at playing this game, like really terrible, but I really like the story, and honestly I don't know what a D6 is, but I want to go to a tournament, I'd be like, don't go. Like, that's not okay. You have a level of responsibility to be good enough at the game that you're competent to finish a game with other people, right? Yeah. But so, like, you can be as narrative as you like, but there's a certain requirement to be competitive. But you can also be competitive as you like, but also the game is super narrative. I don't understand people who don't think the game is narrative. That's where I fall down. Nathan, you got any pushback on that or any thoughts?
I agree that the game is pretty narrative at the moment. It definitely encourages you to go with a theme and take a theme. I think the rules tend to. So and you'll find that most competitive armies are pretty much along a theme. I think what the guy that guy mini wargaming guy that you were talking about was saying was, like, if you did something in a game which is obviously what is the right tactical thing to do, but you know, narratively they wouldn't do that. So like if you took a sorcerer in a corn thing and decided to buff the hell out of some Wrathmongers or something with a sorcerer lord, yeah, the Wrathmongers would probably be a bit pissed off with that guy and go and bash him rather than...
To be fair, they started out pissed off, so I'm not sure.
Yeah, but they would take it out on that guy for using magic on them, sort of thing. Whereas, but that I think you find more and more that's more of that's themed out anyway, just with the way the rules are written. So I agree with you. I do think Games Workshop are getting over, are getting the rules right to encourage narrative play. And yeah, hats off to them for that, definitely. And I think you'll find most people, even the narrative gamers, really, not the narrative, the competitive war gamers, whatever. I think you'll find a lot of them will try and stick to a theme anyway, just because it's cool. It's, and even when you get a soup list, I know people will point at soup lists and say, this is not very narrative or something. I disagree with that. When I started doing Orcs and Goblins in 8th edition, I really liked the look of the mixed Orcs and Goblins as a whole sort of ramshackle force that just turned up, and there were goblins and snotlings and orcs and everybody, and you had animosity. They would bash each other around a bit, and then they'd go maybe bash some of the enemy occasionally, and
that bloody table.
It was great, and whereas I think you'd find a lot of competitive players who definitely not have enjoyed the animosity table, whereas I really enjoyed it, because I think maybe at heart I'm a bit, I fall into both camps. I do enjoy the narrative side of it, and I really used to love it when the animosity table fucked me over. So
we could talk about that all day, couldn't we? That was a side of things to come.
I've got some great stories about the animosity table, but that's just the way it is, and I don't know why I said that, but it is the way it is. But yeah, I do say hats off to the rules guys for they are definitely trying out the narrative side and pushing that side. Oh, but yeah, the soup thing. Even nowadays with some of the soup lists, especially those ones that you've been doing with Sam.
Yep.
Those are cool, and I know a lot. There's a few people out there that are saying, Grand Allegiance armies should be, done away with and stuff like that. I disagree wholeheartedly with that. I think there's narrative, especially now in the way that Age of Sigmar has gone, with the narrative being basically just ripped wide open, and there's no limit to what your imagination can come up with. There's always a reason something can happen. That's cool. Just go ahead and have fun and just fucking do it. So I don't think narrative is definitely a reason to diss a list, really.
Agreed. I think, and also for talking about a tactical choice in game, if you are narratively focused at all, I could give you a reason why an a unit of orc hard boys won't charge and beat something up, because there's something I could give you a whole bunch of narrative reasons why they're sat near an objective as opposed to charging off, right? Yeah, they're scared of the big mega boss on the Maw Crusher. They're scared of him, and he's told us to stand here. He'll duff us up if we don't do it. It's easy. You can create that story all day. So the game is fantastically narrative while also being competitive, which I think is good. So I think that's unfair. I'm going to read a couple of things in the comments because I want everyone to be allowed to have a say, and then we'll see where we're going on. Katif says, it's totally separated in my gaming group. People can't even imagine that you use a good tactical list for a narrative game. That's why I never play narrative games. Azrak also says Asian MMO armor rules. High level armor is basically being naked, which I think is fair.
That is true.
The problem with the armor stuff is that because it's a bit granular, you've got the armor save, but that is also there to represent the the toughness and the resilience of models in the case of Slayers, who are, in the narrative, they're always as tough as anything. Or the fanaticism that drives the Witch Elves, where they ignore, wounds that would make some people stop and start moaning about the fact that they're missing a leg or an arm or something, and they don't give a fuck. They're just going there and they're going to stab something. So there you go.
Nathan, yes. Fuck yes, great points. Well, I'm just high-fiving you through the screen because I can't do it in real life. Great shout.
I can't see you.
Anyway, most people play just one-off pickup games straight out of the book anyway. All they really mean by narrative is that the composition of a list fits a theme and it isn't some weird nonsensical spam list. How many people actually carefully craft narrative scenarios and play a story? Now, some definitely do. So in Angle's opinion, not very many. That's why Games Workshop have made Crusade to spoon feed people to the means to do so. Yeah, so in the new 40k Nath, there's an entire way, obviously not a path to glory, may it soon die, but they've created a system for playing narrative. And again, I don't think ADB was talking about this at all, but it's just something you mentioned and I wanted to unpack. So I would argue, and I need someone to so this is obviously my opinion, but my statement is the game is incredibly narrative even at the most competitive end of the game, and you would have to point out how it's not to me. Just because you don't like it is not evidence that it's not narrative. I think it's designed narratively.
But you can use narrative to make your list, and your list would not necessarily be competitive as well.
Yes, that's fair. Custodian Sloth says, is this in the Cult Manifesto, Nathan? Is this in your manifesto?
Yeah, that's also against our religion manifesto.
Travis Pearson says, what kills the narrative in competitive play is not the theme, but the min-maxing of good units. If they wanted to keep a theme, they would write rules that would encourage you to take more of a mixed force rather than spending points. Travis, thank you for jumping me onto my next point. Let's talk about unit parity and why we don't talk about some units as much as we could. Okay?
Yeah.
Because especially as talking heads. So we talk for quite a bit, actually, and I even more so. And it can range between, we talk about all sorts of units, and sometimes we'll talk about units that aren't particularly good, and we'll talk about ways to make them better. But it's very hard not to. It's very hard not to compare them to the best thing, because we need some sort of scale, right? We need the best and the worst. And therefore, we can start to gauge stuff in between. Where tournament play is so valuable to us is we can have a very varied, complex set of rules interacting against each other, one army versus another army, and then we can see, thanks to LLV, some statistical modelling of what those results generally look like, other than just my fucking opinion or Nathan's opinion or James's opinion. And so when you tend to see units taken a lot, we can start to have conversations. Like Marauders are excellent. Salamanders are far too good. Keepers of Secrets at one point were just bonkers, right? So, you have these conversations. You're like, well, why aren't you talking about Fiends of Slaanesh? Well, it's like, well, no one's running Fiends of Slaanesh, so I can't have that conversation. And now it's just my feeling. Because I have evidence and statistical information for the units that we're talking about, but when you want to talk about Fiends of Slaanesh versus Keepers of Secrets, I don't have a fucking leg to stand on because I don't know what I'm talking about. A good example would be, to make it easier, is man-eaters. Because Mick brought this up earlier, and it was an incredibly good point. You've got 3 units that really do the same inside the Ogre book. You've got man-eaters, you've got Iron Guts, and you've got Ogre Gluttons. So those 3 things effectively do the same job. They're combat units, right? Now, there's enough of a difference, I think, between the Iron Guts and the Gluttons to have a conversation. And this is not even including Lead Belchers, which is the best of all 3, in my opinion. But then, when you talk about man-eaters, you can't talk about them, because they just are a shitter version of the other 3 things that exist inside the book, right? And so, how are you having a conversation about them? Does that make sense? Like, why would I not be having a conversation about gluttons or iron guts and never a conversation about man-eaters, other than the models are truly fantastic.
Yep.
Truly fantastic. And the story that they're mercenaries is great. So, because there's nothing that I can do to man-eaters that I can't also do to these other units. And actually, you don't get a lot of ways to buff man-eaters, I think. There's a way to make gluttons better. The iron guts are in different units. So, do you guys understand what I mean about parity? Like, it's hard to have conversations about stuff that aren't involved in the story of playing the game. Am I making any sense?
Yeah, I think one of the issues that we're always going to have, isn't it, is whether you play narratively or competitively. And as someone who doesn't, well, I don't think plays overly competitively, like, I like Warhammer for the social aspect, more than anything else, there's still kind of something nice to having an actual game, if that makes sense. Like, the ability to be part of the game is really important, because if you play one of those armies, for me, like, those armies that kind of take people off in a turn aren't much fun on either side of the table. But also, if I take an army that's fully narrative but also is so bad it can't play the game, it's really boring for my opponent. And I think that, like, that's important, isn't it? So, like, and it was a good kind of comparative, in my opinion, especially being the army that I was in theory playing this year. But, like, that Slaves to Darkness book, which I still think was an absolutely killer of a book, there was no reason you would take Chaos Warriors over Marauders, because they're rubbish compared.
Yeah.
You know, like narratively, I might be like, oh, I'm bringing an Archaon. So
completely narrative.
He'd probably have warriors with him, would he? Because would he take the best of the best? And then I go back and I look at the book and I go, okay, right. So I can have 5 Chaos Warriors for like 100 points, who are just like 10 wounds, that can't hit anything, that don't do any damage, even though they're the chosen warriors of all the Chaos Gods. They just pick their side on the day. And Archaon's bringing them, but they wound on 4s or whatever it is, and they don't have rend, and they're not as tanky as they should be. Or do I take these, like, for 20 more points, do I take 20 guys who didn't bother to wear a top, or super ready to get in a fight? And I think, like, that's the problem, isn't it? Like, and I guess it's as you say, like, you can write that narrative for it. So, like, for me, like, and I can see, let me call them out. Let me find them. Dudar Day, who's calling me out on having 120 Marauders. So I think, like, there's that thing, but my whole Lives to Darkness list, for any poor bugger that had to play it, because I was still learning it, like, in my head, that whole list made sense, like, in a narrative aspect, and all those kind of Marauders running about kind of made sense. So I get like the conversation of kind of almost made narrative, but at the same time, I brought all the Chaos Warriors to make a Chaos Warrior list, and then just kind of thought, I don't want to play this. It would be horrifically boring for me. It would be horrifically boring for my opponent.
Yeah, well, like, so I think you've touched on another point, which I'd like to expand into in a moment, if that's okay, which is about, like, learning what's good so as to save yourself money, but also to understand that you can have a good game. Nathan, you know, anything I said about unit parity beforehand, does any of that make sense, or did I just say too many fucking words and you think I'm a dick? Because that's fair too.
No, I mean, obviously, there in all the units across all of the game, there is not any unit parity, as in no 2 units are equal.
Yes.
And so, obviously, there's going to be units that are more efficient and more effective and better priced, but there'll be other units that are more cool. So fuck you, efficient units. And
But hold on. But like, can I just talk about this for a minute? Because how do we judge the coolness, right? So obviously we've got the lore and the how the model looks for its.
If they put things in their pants, they're cool.
Agreed. I couldn't agree with you more. Like, but also when you do something truly awesome, like I think the Mortek Corolla looks rad. Yeah, I think it looks rad. But when it just sits at the back of the board and just starts taking hordes off with its shots, yeah, it also feels great. Like it does a great thing. Does that make sense? Like it's James. I was playing TTS last week with my Marauders, and I was just making like 12, 13-inch charges, like they were going out of fashion.
Yep.
I was just like,
great.
I was just like, I'm 10 inches away, definitely making this charge, no issues here. So I feel like Marauders are just incredible now. But my emotional reaction to Warriors is like, you guys suck. So like the rules help with the cools, right? The trademarking that, by the way. .tm.
I think that's part of the game, isn't it? Like, well
I
think
mean,
depends how you play, but
yeah.
the exciting moments. Sorry, Nathan, I'll let you in.
Carry on. Yeah.
Are like parts that make it, aren't they? So like when I was playing that Marauder list, albeit there's 120 of them. So I played a game against Rob Nixon, a mate of mine, when he was testing a Nighthorn army, and there was a guy in a different list with an Archaon in, so no one runs away, and one Marauder held back 20 Blade Geists and won me the game.
Amazing.
And you just think, like, that dude, and I think I brought him home and like just finished dry brushing him properly. I was like, well done, you.
Dry brushed his bollocks for him.
Yeah,
because they're massive.
Good ab.
Yeah. Rules for cool is greater than rule of cool, and that actually, Angle, thank you for that. Now I'm not.
I disagree totally because.
Good. Talk to me about it.
Yeah, there's some models that are just super cool. So I used to love playing with the Squig Gobber.
Yes, you did.
And even when it was maybe the rules weren't the coolest rules that you would have seen. I just think it's just because it was a cool model, and also the fact that the rules were so not cool actually made it quite a cool. Maybe made the Squig Gobber cooler for me.
Yeah, it came around. It came around, right? Like,
the fact that it was that awful made it actually fairly attractive to me. Because it's just like,
so when you beat Rob with it, you were like, beat with a Squig Gobber, mate.
Yeah, I mean, it's just
every time. A good example of a cool rule, because I agree with what Angle says, and there's some stuff I want to read in the chat. Says rules can be cool without being super powerful, in my opinion, and he's right. Let me tell you something about my life. I fucking loathe. On my tombstone, I think I wouldn't mind it being written, I fucking hate netters. Yeah, I don't mind that being written. Yeah, that's fine. If I ever have to play Nathan Prescott one more time and he goes, that model's within 3 inches of a netter, I'll be like, yes, I know, I'm -1 to hit. But like, netters have this emotional like place in my head where they're so much larger than a Chaos Warrior. They are this phenomenal. He's like 3 attacks from the netters. I'm like, how can a guy like a goblin with a net? Yeah, but they're also,
Chaos Warriors.
Yeah, but they're also like coolness-wise, they're up there as well because like I loathe them. They're a good bad guy. Like they have an interactive emotional reaction that isn't overwhelmingly negative. Like it's a good rule. It does something good. I think where we get the overwhelmingly negative feelings is things like eels, when they all can strike first at the first time. When it's Keepers of Secrets and they're making all your army strike last. When it's Flamers that are just teleporting and taking your army out. When it's Salamanders that can't die and just delete your army. Yeah, like you have this negative reaction because you think, wow, this isn't cool. This is just over the top. Yeah, and I think that's a rule issue by the game designers, and it's got zero to do with us as commentators or the player base, because that's the other point. I'm just gonna read some stuff in the chat.
I agree. Rules don't have to be strong to be cool, but that also works vice versa. As in, it doesn't matter if some strong rules can also be cool. It works both ways.
Yeah, that's fair. Done supervise, like the first Zinch book, they released beautiful new models in the Acolytes. Agreed. But Skyfire's Enlightened and Zangor were way better, like way better. Also, big love to Dan Supervise, what a legend. BC Chaos book comes out, and maybe an opportunity to balance them so people run more Acolytes, or maybe even just make BC Chaos good. But bugger that, they make Enlightened better and cheaper, and also Zangor. We talked about it when we did the BC Chaos book. We're like, you've got Gore, Ungor Raiders, you've got Bestigore, but the best Gore are the Enlightened.
Best Gore are the best Gore. They're not.
No, they're not.
No.
Well,
It's in the name.
they weren't at the time. They've had a drop since. But like, how can someone, and especially if I want to collect Beasts of Chaos, right? I'm like, this is awesome. I want to play Beasts of Chaos, but then I look at a Cygor, and I look at a unit of Salamander. I mean, they're not at the same time, and there's just no way I would put a Cygor on the tabletop. Like you could, and there are people that don't give a shit about that, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Right? But how do I have that conversation? Like, so when we go and do tournament coverage, and we're like, look at this fucking psycho. He's brought 4 Cygors. Let's stick him on the stream. Yeah?
Hero.
And hero. We're like, what a legend. And then we just see 4 Cygors get taken off in half a turn. Yeah? And you're like, why did we do this? No one... Like, we didn't enjoy it as viewers. We didn't enjoy it as commentators to talk about. Therefore, the player surely can't have enjoyed it as well. So it's such an odd, like, how can I keep having the conversation about Cygors? Like, because it's not an interesting interaction. It's just always one-sided. Does that make sense?
It's not necessarily always one-sided. There are other units that are comparable to Cygor.
That's true. That's very true.
I mean, yeah. We could have a Cygor Tree Lord battle in a bit.
That we could. I think the problem is, isn't it? I think it's that what you tend to find, maybe like the underlying issue is that when an army is new, it generally tends to be stronger, and I know that's not always the case, which is why I use the term new. It tends to be. So maybe our issue is that actually we're all addicted to a hobby where we keep buying grey plastic, building it, trying to paint it fast enough to play it before the next thing comes out. And maybe that's one of the issues, is actually that what we end up seeing is a lot of the same army again, because people don't want to spend a load of their money on stuff they don't think is any good.
Well, also, why would you? And I think part of ADB's point is he doesn't like talking heads or WhatsApp groups or Facebook groups when someone goes, Idneth are a really good example. It must be horrible to be in an Idneth group or anything else. You jump in there and someone's like, what do you collect? And someone goes, get eels. It's like, oh, I quite like turtles. Like, no, turtles suck. Yeah, you're like, well, do they? They just aren't as good. Like, what's your framework? And the problem is that tournaments provide a framework of conversation, and we don't really have any other frameworks of conversation other than anecdotal, right?
Yeah, I think, I don't know, it's a hard one as well, isn't it? Almost a bit like to pick on him, but in a good way. So obviously a couple of weeks ago when me and you did that event, the TTS event coverage, and we watched Benjamin Sava play like incredibly well with that shark list, which in theory, has always been one of the units people have been like, oh, they're rubbish. And he had that whole debate, didn't he, where I think it was like, oh, they've got more wounds, they last longer, you keep them around longer, you have longer in the game, etc., etc. Like, I think one of the other problems that we have maybe as a community is people basically make their decision based on a war scroll rather than the wider stuff. Like, without... not always, but I think like that eel thing, you're like, oh, these are great, just take all those. Whereas actually, like, his debate was, oh, this can last longer and it can do this and it can do this instead. And is that trade-off for how I play better in this way? Blah, 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 blah. I don't know. It's a hard one, isn't it? I think it also depends how you play the game. And I don't mean... because I know we've gone over that, like, narratively or tournament play, but also, like, there's so many tactical decisions you make on a table. And I know we've talked about it before, so some people will play conservatively, won't they? And some people play hyper aggressive. And I think that also is part of your army build,
Well,
or
it's
should be.
yeah. Well, I mean, but that's also takes so much information to learn about yourself, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Like it's so much information you have to front load, and if you're new, especially if you're new, you join a Facebook group, you join a WhatsApp group, you're like, hey guys, I'd like to collect Stormcast, and everyone goes, well, Stormcast statistically are pretty crap at the minute, and then you feel disenfranchised and you feel disheartened, which is unfair, yeah. But it's also that information is fairly realistic to a degree. So because we're trying to answer ADB's question a little bit, I think. Because we'll talk, like, Nathan will, like, never fucking shut up about whatever he wants. It's like, Nathan, what you want to do a rundown on today is like, yeah, well, I was thinking of doing this one warband from Shadespire and, like, toss you if you don't like it. Like, cool, Nathan, whatever. Like, and I think that is a massive positive. I think it really is as well. But you also need a framework of what's good so that you can not have those uninteractive games. Because that's super important. Because if someone says to you, you can collect what you like and play what you like, and then you play a game, your friend then just brings something else. And you guys might both be completely ignorant of power levels of stuff, but he walks all over you all day. And you think, I'm being rubbish. I'm terrible at this game. Why am I so bad? Does that make sense? But it might not be anything to do with the fact that you're bad. Your army might just suck. Versus your mate's army. He may never have bought a net list. He may never have been on the internet. He might just think there's too many websites. It can't be asked, and there's no parity.
And then he brought Seraphon. Not Seraphon, Sylvaneth. Sylvaneth versus Seraphon. That's the game.
I lost to them the other day, so I can't really talk about that. I lost them
You
on
lost
Tuesday
to
night.
what?
Fucking Sylvaneth. Can't keep.
How are you still hosting a Warhammer show? Get out!
I know.
Nathan,
You go
you're in
back.
charge.
You go back and watch it. Yeah, Nathan, you're in charge. It's fine. It's fine.
That's great.
How many
I
Free
know.
Lords are in the list?
Zero. There were 9 Kurnoth hunters that could teleport whenever they liked. But the point is that, like, and some of those wins are more rewarding, like when you get those wins. But you have to understand that your win is rewarding, like so.
I mean, those two people when they play each other, and if it does come down to the fact that one unit is totally outclassed by another, they should be able to pick up on that immediately, and hopefully they've got brain enough to be able to say, look, obviously the rules are, not all the units are made equal then, and try not to be too disheartened that it's not the way you're playing, but it's actually the fact that something has got, an extremely good set of rules compared to something else that might have either less good or really shit rules. So, that is definitely something that happens. But you can still take a shit thing and have a good game, and your opponent have a good game.
That's true. That's very true. You can do that, absolutely, and you can be having a great time doing so as well. And I think what we're trying to refocus our conversation always to what ADB was asking was, why do people not talk about these units that aren't considered as good, or these artifacts that maybe aren't as good? Maybe sometimes when we do a Battletome review, like we've got the Lumineth coming up, there might be an artifact in the Lumineth that says all units within 8 inches get +1 bravery, and we're gonna skip that because we're gonna skip reading that. And the reason we're gonna skip reading that is because that is almost useless in comparison to. So there's very few armies that are trying to run bravery beat bombs that, like, we talked about the flare spam bravery D bomb list. There's like one person in the world, maybe two, who are ever trying to do that. So it becomes a fairly irrelevant conversation always. Whereas something that adds +1 save to everyone within 18 inches, super important conversation. Yeah, like that. Like, and you've only got so much time. And we've done this, Nath. You and me have read through Battletomes before. We've read through artifacts, and we've had nothing to say about them, right? Like,
Yeah.
and if you have nothing to say, you can't talk about it. Like, am I making sense? You've been through this experience with me.
Yeah, I would agree that there are a lot of, especially like artifacts or spells or something like that, where there won't be a lot of discussion either because they are not particularly strong, but it's mainly because they're just not very interesting. They don't have like a nice, unique thing. I mean, if you look at isn't there a Skaven one where it does like a crazy amount of mortal wounds, but it only happens if you roll a 6. The thing that used to
The brass
auto
orc.
kill. Yeah,
Yeah, that's awesome.
yeah. Well, we'll talk about it, but it's not particularly competitive.
No, but we will talk about the fact that that's a
Yeah,
cool artifact.
but that's just because it's interesting and it's unique. Where if it's a +1 bravery item, I mean, that's not particularly unique, is it? It's just, and it's not particularly imaginative. So yeah, you can't really expect discussion about that.
That's also the other element as well. Like when you are having a discussion about units, it's like unimagination. Like, oh, that's not a word, but the stuff. Yeah, I know, but the stuff that isn't interesting, yeah. The stuff that isn't interesting. So why would I talk about it? Like, man-eaters suck. Like, why am I going to talk about them? Like, they're fine. But, like, lead belchers, now, like, a lot of people think lead belchers suck, but I think lead belchers are all decent. I get to shoot, I get to charge, I get to fight. They're a better version of Gorges. Not Gorges, sorry. Whatever they're called. Those guys. Those fucking, yeah, gluttons, thank you. So I would talk about that all day, and I would have like discussions and rows, and we could talk about the versatility of it. And I think it's a cool conversation to have, because we're having like a nuanced conversation between these units. I would love to know what everyone else in the chat thinks. So Dan the Superfly says, best artifact in the game, spell in a bottle. Changed my mind. Nathan, what do you think about that? Because that seems that a lot of the KO guys are like must do spell in the bottle, but you don't agree with that, right?
I think it's a really fun one, and it's a pretty strong one. It's a really strong one, isn't it? But I think the Karajan they're one of the luckier books. I think there's just a plethora of lovely artifacts in that book.
Like lovely girls.
Like lovely girls.
There's lovely girls in the KO book.
No, the film Lovely Girl is something me and Nathan watched on the way to China, which was great. I thought he has Frozen. It might be my internet, not yours. That's mine. Thanks, Nathan. Thanks for coming back to me. So, like, let's see what everyone else has got to say.
I'd agree with Dan. It is a fun artifact, and it's pretty strong. Yeah.
So to wind this up, as it maybe like to answer the question, why is a lot of the conversation focused on competitive units and the units that are best and good? Oh, actually, sorry, there's one more bit that we haven't talked about is time. Time invested.
Yeah.
This is my job. I do this every day. I think, talk, and write about Warhammer every single day of my life. And even I don't know all of it. Like, as do other talking heads, they don't know all of it. I'm not the best at the game. Like, you know, and even with that consideration, I don't have time to talk about all the units that exist. I don't have time to talk about all the units in parity because there's no way I could possibly ever learn that. That doesn't make any sense. So for a guy whose hobby it is to turn up and be like, like, of course, someone goes, what's good? Someone goes, this. Like, if I was going to play a computer game, I was playing Vermintide with Val the other day and Colonel Cabbage, and I was playing a mage, so this is an online game. I was playing the mage because I was like, fucking love fireballs, yeah? And then Val was like, hey, dude, just to let you know, this is my Val impression, by the way, everything I've seen online pretty much says the fireballs are rubbish. He's not. He's Canadian, so that was a bad version of the voice. But he, like, I didn't know that. I just wanted to play the fun thing, and I kept dying when we were playing games together. And then I've changed up to a witch hunter, and I'm like, the guy feels immortal compared to the character I was playing before, right? So, like, is that my fault? Like, I had a bad gaming experience, and then now I've changed to the good thing. But thankfully, it's all the same game. But if it cost me £10 to play the fire guy, then £10 to play the witch hunter guy, then the £10, like, I would have felt robbed. I was like, why is this guy shit? Do you know what I mean?
I think so. I think also, like, interestingly, like, comparing, if we go computer games, but like League of Legends, because that's probably one of the biggest esports games, like, people tier the champions in that the same way that we tier units in Sigma. And do we think, like, part of that's got to come also down to the fact that, right, as a bunch of gamers, like, I wouldn't say I'm the most competitive player in any game I play, be it computer or Warhammer, unless I'm playing FIFA, in which case I become an arsehole, but that's another story. But I also think, like, you still want to win. Like, there's still a pleasure to winning.
Well, you would like the chance to win.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing. So I also think there's that, isn't there? So the reason for me, like, the reason that we still talk about, like, the competitiveness of units is almost to balance the game as a community for the community.
Keep going, baby. Preach on it. Preach on that point.
Well, I think that's it, right? So, like, I got back into Warhammer several years ago, probably more than anything. I might have talked about this before to people. I don't think I've ever talked about it on the show for my mental well-being. So I got back into Warhammer that I was into when I was a kid, didn't for years, had brought a copy of Space Hulk, like, re-released 4 years previously. It sat in my mum's loft, and I was having a really shitty time personally, and I was like, I don't know what I can do. I don't know how to, like, chill my brain out. I was like, what can I do? I think I saw someone on YouTube unbox, like, something old. And
an unboxing!
Yeah. And I was like, I think I've still got, like,
It wasn't YouTube, was it? It was Pornhub.
Yeah, it was probably. And so I think, like, I went back, and I can still remember. So when I brought Space Hulk, I also went into the Games Workshop shop and brought all the paints it told me to on the box, like, all of them simultaneously. Knows how much I spent. So I just basically brought it all, opened it, never used it, put it all away. So I almost feel like, for me, like, that's how I started. I restarted painting, and that was my enjoyment. And then I started to play, and it was like, oh, I get an enjoyment from this. And I was talking about this the other day with Nick Thompson. I think I've got, like, 7 Age of Sigmar armies, and I'm happy that I've afforded those and invested in those. And I'm happy that I still own them all because I can afford to. But there are other people that can't. Like, other people aren't in that position. And I think, like, part of the game that makes it fun is it being balanced, us playing together and understanding it as a community, because the community is the best bit for me. Like, so when I play, I don't want to play an army that's horribly unengaging for my opponent, but I also want to use the toys I want to play. So when we talk about units and we get a book out and we go, when you see a Lord of Change, whenever it was, not a Lord, Keeper of Secrets, like, I'd brought some and I was like, these are horrible. Like, they're horrible to fight against. But no one's going to take the other heroes because they're rubbish in comparison. So then what we talk about is, well, actually, there's these other armies. You could do this. Or you could get your KO back out even pre-new book because they can shoot them off the board, blah, 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 blah. But I think for me, like, we talk about all this stuff because it balances it. And we, you know, like, I know me and you have had the conversation where it's almost like we will literally, like, me and you had a great discussion about Gorgons once. I think that was on the street. And I was like, I love them. I love the fact it's a giant cow with big fat spikes on his fist that just wants to hit things. And you said they're rubbish. And I know they're rubbish, but I also love them. And I know that on that day where you roll an 8 on the charge, it goes into combat and it just punches someone. Like, yeah, I don't know. Like, I just think like you still have to have that balance, because I also wouldn't want someone off my words to go and buy a Gorgon and then be like, this is rubbish.
Yeah, like I want to be as excited about everything, right? Like I don't want to I hate that. I hate pissing on people's chips. Like Monday or Tuesday. Yeah, Wednesdays though. That's my thing. But the rest of the week, I don't want to. I don't want to. I don't like. I know for a fact that people think that the show is negative because you'll say this is good and this is sucky. Yeah, right. But like, it's only sucky comparatively. Like,
Yeah.
it's like Nathan said, if you comped it so all of the X things were shit, like if you just banned all of the units that are problems, yeah, you can have a great game. You can be running around with Gorgons. And like, it's fine. Like, it's cool. It can do its thing. And maybe because I haven't explored it enough, it's still viable, right? Maybe you can do something with it. Right, like Angus Brain in the chat, or Brian, says, I killed Nagash with a Gorgon once after it ate some more gas and survived a Hand of Dust twice. There you go.
Yeah.
What a fucking legend.
We're going to just pause for 1 second,
Yeah.
because I don't know who they are, but someone called Psycat put in the chat, damn, James looks much older than he sounds. So catching a live show. Thanks, Psycat. Nice to
How do
meet
you feel about that?
I mean, I've got a beard. I saw my mum the other day and she told me I looked like no one owned me. So I'm used to it.
It's a contentious issue nowadays. Nath, what, you got any thoughts about what we've been talking about?
Yeah, nobody owns me either.
Good positives.
No, those are all fair points, and it does depend a lot on who you're playing the game with and what you're looking to get out of the game a lot, obviously, as well. If you are going to tournaments, you do probably have a bit of a you probably do want to take an army that's at least half decent, just so that.
But isn't that unfair?
You don't get rolled over.
Yeah, but isn't that unfair to the guys who are just like who don't even want to go to a tournament? They just want to play a game. Like someone pointed out the Dark Imperium box set for or the Nighthaunt. Let's just do the Nighthaunt starter box. I think Stormcast kicked the fuck out of the Nighthaunt like 90% of the time. Like, because it's a pretty crappy build, like, of Nighthaunt stuff that's in there, and I don't think even the units are even the right sized units, for Christ's sake. Like, they're like,
Yeah, nor with the Stormcast ones.
Okay, but so how does that make any sense? Like, we're not even talking about that. I buy a starter box, me and my mate. I'm not going to a tournament. Yeah.
I bet if you did the Call to Glory using that box, you'd have a fun time.
That's true. You have to buy like 8 books.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't want to interrupt you. I just wanted to, say that I think the parity issue is the main issue and the ones that we need to talk about, right? I think you need to.
Yeah, I mean, there is obviously a parity issue, and I think it's always a good thing, obviously, to highlight it to people that it's there, but also to point out that some of the secondary stuff, there's other stuff in different builds, like Aaron was saying, that there are other builds out there that aren't as obvious, but you can still get some good mileage out of them. I mean,
Absolutely.
in the Ideneth Deepkin book, Thralls are actually really good unit for their points, but it's just easier to paint those long wriggly things and shove them around. But
And it's probably cheaper.
Yeah, and probably cheaper. But some people's playstyle, they might actually get more out of the game if they played the Thrall game, if they're not into running stuff around like crazy, if they want to create more of a castle type or bricks or something like that, and play that sort of a game, they'll probably get a good game out of the Thralls. When you look at the Thrall wall scroll, and for the points,
That's good.
they're a really, really solid unit. If I had that unit in any of my armies, I'd be fucking over the moon.
Yeah, same with. Like, I think that about Stalkers from OCR Bone Reapers. I fucking love that War Scroll. Like, I think it's
Yeah,
great.
yeah.
I think if you put it in Petrifex, you and me have played it a little bit before. Like, they're blenders. They're brilliant. But then they fall into a scenario issue where there's not a lot of bodies on the board. There's like a whole bunch of like things that mitigate the conversation.
Yeah,
Which I
well,
think is
that's
good.
particularly compounded in the Ossiarch book because it is a very elite book.
Mm.
So when you get elite units inside an elite book, then it really compounds the problems that you get from playing elite stuff, doesn't it?
Same.
Like the
Yeah,
books.
same with Ideneth, right? Same issue. KO, like KO have that very unique issue as well, where like and also Iron Jaws as was, or if you just play just Iron Jaws Allegiance, also kind of have that same issue as well, where you've got units that do the same thing. KO, everything shoots. So now really it's about what shoots bestest. Or if it doesn't even have to shoot bestest. Again, this is the thing. It's the unimaginative rules. Just don't have one unit shoot better than the other unit. Have it shoot differently. Like, have it have other ways of engaging. I think the OCR book is so good because it has all of its units do basically something different, right? Like,
Yeah.
like the horses are like very similar to Mortex, so you probably trade one out for the other. But they're still fast and they still serve a purpose that's different enough. The Stalkers are different. The Harvester does something grossly different to the Catapult. All of the characters do something different. So the game, like, that's a great book because everything does something different. Like,
Yeah, I mean, yeah, like you pointed out, the Cabadron book. You look at the Engine Rigger and the Sky Warden, and I really struggle to see, other than the fact that you like the look of them, why you would build Sky Wardens, really.
because
Do we think?
because aren't the Skywarders meant to be the more attacky, like the more combaty ones, and the other ones more shooty? But the shooty ones are even better in a fight. Like, the rules
Yeah.
are done badly. Yeah.
I mean, the saws are really good, but you expect saws to be really good in a fight. So,
Mm.
but it's the special rules really as well. The special rules at the Engine Riggers where they just where they heal the boats. I mean, it's just more useful than the weird mines that the Sky Wardens have got. I think if they just tweak those mine rules a bit, then the Sky Wardens would be a viable option because the difference between them is not, it's not a million miles in the actual in the weapons that they take, but the special rules are quite different, and then all the special weapons they take, they're exactly the same. Both units can take the same special weapons, so that's a waste of time.
Well, because that's what Age of Sigmar has done, again, compliments to the rules writers, has done so well, because sometimes they're so they're so imaginative with the rules, yeah? Like, they've got all sorts of stuff, and we've actually, weirdly, seen them going... I mean, they've added loads of cool new rules, which is really excellent and super interesting. I'm really a big fan of the Burning Sigil of Tzeentch at the minute. Random as fuck, yeah? Super weird, janky, odd rules. Like, it either debuffs or buffs stuff only in your movement phase. But I think it's kind of fun. It's 40 points. It's a cool end of spell. But it's interesting. It does things. So maybe what ADB is getting at is what he would like to hear more is interesting things rather than good things.
Yeah, I think he would like to hear people talking about that Burning Sigil, whereas nobody else is going to talk about it because it's just not as good as Geminate or something else that people would be taking. But there is still, it's one of those things that have got a bit of uniqueness and they've got a little bit of interesting rules. So it'd be good to hear more people talk about them. Definitely.
Okay. Well, yeah, more Mutinous Vortex piece. I couldn't agree with you more. Like, yeah, it's interesting. At least it's interesting. All right, so just to round it off, because I think we've talked it through, which is great. Oh, well, hold on. Let me just read the chat for a moment. Ian Marley has just said, it all comes back to internal balance, or at Warclans, Blaze of Corn, Cities of Sigmar are among some where you are not goaded to build. I think these are fun for non-tournament play. They are, absolutely. If you look at this, the Cities of Sigmar book is one of the best examples of really, really, really terrible parity. you have the Phoenix Guard, and then you have every other infantry unit, like that's a combat one. Like it's terrible parity. Like there's not even any really like particularly like I guess really the only thing that I could think of that really maybe Iron Breakers, maybe like they are a thing. But for on foot, you think there's just a whole bunch. I feel so sorry for the poor Dark Elves because they just don't even have any interesting rules to be a part of the game. Like, anyway, and Daniel Superfly says, "Have you heard about Admiral Ben's hammer boat? Because that's a pain train of combat." We have heard about that. A boat full.
Is that a boat full of admirals?
Yeah, a boat full of admirals. Like Chris says, yeah, I want to run great swords, but compared to Phoenix Guard, like an even better way, if you guys are just narrative gamers or just want to have fun at home, is just take rules for the stuff that you like and apply it to the models that you like. That's easier. Just be like, these great swords have got the rules of Phoenix Guard. Have on. Like that's much more engaging because you put in the good rules on the good models, right? What do you think? That feels like that's much easier to do than Longbeard.
If your opponents are happy with that, then go for it.
So Trading Post says, this is the final point we'll make, Tyrion champs in LoL is easier than Tyrion units in AOS or 40k because you have way more data and LoL has an almost competitive only environment. Additionally, LoL consists of nothing but armies. In tabletops costs a lot. So it feels way worse if your unit sucks because it's harder to find proper data to compare them. I think that's one of the reasons people get really antsy when we talk about stuff being too good. I saw a really good Twitter thread yesterday, someone saying that they didn't want to play with their Seraphon anymore in Tabletop Simulator because they felt it was a negative experience for people around them and they couldn't be bothered with the complaining. But who is really... No one's at fault there. He feels upset because people don't like his army, which is super, super fair feeling to have. But other people just feel like they never want to play that army because it's really unengaging and uninteractive. So that's really fair for them as well. They both are just spending a bit of time in their free time away from the world, which isn't the greatest right now, like to try and find some fun and enjoy. So neither of those two people are at fault, right? But the game designers are. That's what I'd say. Anyway, you guys got any other thoughts about that? Because I think that was a good top conversation about it.
Yeah, I think like realistically, there's never an easy answer to any of that. Like any single question in that talk was there, and I think we could probably do this show every Monday for like the next 6 years, and we'd have a different conversation every time. But what I think, like for me, like it just goes back to community, and I always feel like probably the reason I always enjoyed the show before I used to talk on it, and maybe why we always, we got on when we met was because like I'm quite happy and open to talk about the community, and I feel like what you've always done is been honest and open with everyone about what they get from it, and that's why I sit and natter here, because that's important. Like the people are the best part. Let's make it better for all of us.
Yes, I think that is important. But maybe there is some lessons to be learned. Maybe there are ways that we could review stuff better, which I think is healthy. Like maybe all of us next week could do a rundown on something that is out there and weird, if you guys are up for that. So next Monday. If we haven't seen the Lumineth stuff, in which case we're forced, obviously, to discuss the Lumineth stuff.
How exciting!
Excited. The week after, obviously, we could talk about... we could do a rundown. So we'll aim to do a rundown and see if that is an exciting way to re-engage on those units. Nath, if you got any thoughts?
Yeah, no, I agree. I think a lot of people are just getting different things out of the game, and so sometimes they'll meet on the table and they're both looking for different things. Sometimes there will be a happy coincidence or collision of ideas, but sometimes you're not going to get neither of you are going to get what you wanted out of that game. And like in the case of that guy with the Seraphon, that's unfortunate, but I'm sure if he played against a load of other dudes that had Seraphon, then they'd be having their competitive games and shooting each other and having a great time. So, you got to have got to look at your expectations, really. But a lot of that only comes from experience within the game, I think. And sometimes just you're going to get fucked by the dice anyway, so it doesn't matter.
I mean, that's also true.
Yep. Buy piss dice off me.
Well,
and I sell them in 2 weeks.
or don't forget the Honest War Game dice roll really well. So if you guys ever want to pick up some of those, well, thanks both of you and anyone who's stuck through this for that conversation, because it was a thread that gained a lot of traction from ADB, and I wanted to express just how hard it is to talk about stuff, and also not to be disingenuous, because I've also seen very recently some very disingenuous opinions put online by content creators who are just like saying, well, you could take anything, or this isn't as good as you say it is, or like, not saying that about me, just saying generally in conversation, which was clearly like the opposite of general consensus, right? And that's the other problem. We also have some bad actors in our community. We have Games Workshop, they're a bad actor in our community. They'll say that everything is great equally, and that is not true, demonstrated.
Do you know what, we should just kind of talking about it, because I think like some people might kind of say, well, they don't. But like, I just think like that, the interesting thing, like the other day when they were like, right, this hero is going to fight every hero. Oh, look, the new one's just won.
I mean,
this Lumineth Realm Lord, like, we're not sure on his points, but he's got 7 wounds or whatever it is. Killed Nagash. 1 dice roll. Is that statistically possible? No, doesn't matter. Still did it.
Still did it.
He was great.
So, and I mean, that's most people's way that they absorb information. They're like, I'm going to go and listen to the company. Why would they lie to me? I mean, obviously that's a different kettle of fish. But, so we have some bad actors in the community, whether that be the company itself or other content creators who don't want to tell you the hard truth. So that's not good. And obviously there's people like me who think they're right, which doesn't mean I am. It's a very different thing as well, because I could be as just a bad an actor, because my opinion is what I think I go off, and I could just be as wrong as other people are intentionally wrong. So, you do have to do some critical thinking all on your own, which is, it just sounds like a lot of hard work, eh, Nath? That's just too much.
I'm a terrible actor as well, I think. I once did some acting at school, and they fired me. So, and I got demoted from what I was acting to something else.
I don't think they could fire you from school. Were you a teacher?
No, I was demoted. So, when I was in grade 7, whatever that is, in this country, we did, I think we did Alibaba and the 40 Thieves or something like that. And the school drama teacher told us, split us up into groups, and we had to go and, we were the bazaar, people in the bazaar, and we were told, we had to go and come back with a stall idea or something, what we could be in the bazaar. So people went off and they were like jugglers, troops and stuff like that. Anyway, we decided we'd be a slave trader and some slavers.
You've told me this before.
A slaver and some slaves. So obviously it was my idea. So I got to be the slave trader, but I was a bit lazy at being a slave trader, so they turned me into a slave.
There you go. I love it when Nathan tells a story.
They promoted one of the slaves to become the slave trader. So yeah, there we go.
Okay. Wait, the school actually created that story of slaves and slave traders?
No, we created it, the group, and then they said, yeah, fair enough. That's thematic. That's something that you would see in a bazaar during the times of Alibaba. So yeah. Go for it.
Give us one of your lines from that production.
Can you remember a line?
No, that's why they fired me, because I couldn't remember my lines. How am I going to remember them now?
Today?
3 years down the line.
Can we organise this for a theatre show for one of the stream streaks? Nathan Prescott interpretive dance. I'm in.
Topless, because then you'll get more views.
All right, let's try and think of, like, we're going to come back and do some rundowns next week, or we'll do the Lumineth Realm Lords book if we get leaks to do to do a good enough review, or we'll do a first look. If you, Nathan, you got any thoughts what you might try and do as an interesting but not top tier rundown? I think that's kind of. You don't have to think up one now, because I'm like, what would I do? I'm not sure.
Yeah, obviously I like to do a rundown on something that I actually use, because then you've got some
oomph behind it.
Yeah, some reference. So I don't know, maybe a gun hauler. I quite enjoyed using the gun hauler. I've only played one game with it, but yeah, I think it'd be quite cool.
All right, sweet. James, you got any thoughts?
I think there's just so much to run through, isn't there? There's so many things. I'm quite happy with anything. You know me, not about anything.
I think I might try Museless Vortex Beast, because there was a really funny 40k variant build of it one time. So I'd like to explore if that's a thing as well.
I'll do a Gorgon.
A Gorgon? Oh, God. Okay.
Oh, someone's even told me, Colonel Cabbage said, since you were talking about it, do the Gorgon. There we go.
Okay.
Didn't see that, but I'm taking it.
Can you also do the Cygor at the same time to compare, so I could understand which one to build?
Yes, I will.
Because I might do the Mutant Vortex Beast and maybe also the Slaughter Brute to see which one of those two I would build, because it's the same kit, right, that you build either way.
Yep.
That's grand. We should have a fight-off at the end.
Yeah,
right,
let's do it.
Versus Mutant Vortex Beast versus whatever Cygons and Gorgons.
Yeah, all right. Things. I'm into that. Well, it's been a pleasure talking to both of you, and for everyone else, to everyone else on the show. Have you guys got any shout-outs you want to do before we head out for the day? Anyone we want to say big loves to?
No, not this week.
Okay.
I've not been on Twitter a lot, but I'll shout out Benjamin Sava, because I believe he's moved to Kent. Good move.
He's moved to Margate. Is that in Kent?
Yeah.
It's also his birthday.
Good geography, Rob.
I don't know. So I am going to shout out. There's an Australian there's an Australian bat rep channel. Sam Morgan tweeted out at Araby Rises. Go give those a listen. It seemed like a cute little thing that you should go check out. So thanks for joining us live. If you enjoyed the chat, obviously there's Patreon. You guys can support us there. If you've listened to the podcast, stay hydrated. And of course, thanks for joining us live. Ian Marley, Trog, Dude Our Day. I see ya. Wargaming Dad, fuck you buddies. It's been a pleasure. Join us for the rest of the week when we're bringing all sorts of people on to talk about all sorts of things. Maybe this time next week we'll be talking new rules with the Lumineth Realm Lords, which I'm very excited about. Will they have hats that you can throw?
No.
No, you can't throw those hats. You could maybe fly them off of a cliff like a hang glider.
But do join us again. I mean, there's loads of 40k news, so join us for the 40k show on Thursday. That's always a great laugh. Those guys are amazing. It's been a pleasure talking to you two. Thank you, and see you guys soon. Goodbye.
Bye.
Sure.